Was there anybody that was lined up to introduce John, or shall I introduce John?
I'll introduce me, I guess.
Okay, perfect.
All right, here. Let's share this screen. Oops. I gotta figure out how to get everybody else out of the way. So hey, first of all, credit to Grace Meno. I'm on speak. Am I still on mute?
No, I can hear you.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, we can hear you.
Grace Meno for putting this together. I told David Duskin yesterday that, or maybe it was Bob Campbell, I have never done a classification speech or talk. And I didn't remind anybody over the last 22 years. And then I guess you guys voted for old people, and I kind of got back on the train here. So I was born in 1968, just before my mom's senior year in high school, and my dad had just graduated. So I lived with a foster family my first year. That was down in Seattle. And then as soon as mom graduated, she and dad came to get me, and then they got married that July. And it wasn't until, I hate to admit this, I don't know, sometime in college when I realized anniversary. So I started asking a couple of questions after that, but I actually already knew the story. Now, a little bit of background, if you know, like Romeo and Juliet, my mom's side of the family is in Oak Harbor. They were, I'll call it a little more on the well-to-do side. And I say that grandpa was in Rotary and very involved in the business community up there, whereas dad and his family lived on the other side of the tracks, poor side of town. So the fact that those two got together and stayed together is pretty significant all these years later here. So early years, dad was in ROTC at Seattle U, and that was really to help pay for school. But his dad was career Navy, and along with his brother who was killed in Vietnam, he was Army. So dad went into Army, and then things got a little more expensive at Seattle U. So he eventually upgraded schools, went to the University of Washington, and graduated from there. He worked a couple of jobs, including what seems kind of common is down in that area. People work for UPS at night. And but 3 years later, my brother Brandon was born in 1971. So I look back at my own college years and think, here I was just trying to make it home from college. From parties at night, and mom and dad were trying to support one, college expenses, but two, a growing family at that time. Dad graduated in 1972, and then we took off, but I'll cover that in the next slide. But this picture is with Brandon and I. We lived outside of Berlin in Erlangen, Germany. You can live on base or off base, but mom and dad wanted us to have the kind of get to know the locals and learn the culture. So I spoke conversational German as a kid just because that's what I picked up in the sandbox with all my buddies. So these are the places that we had lived. So as soon as dad graduated, went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, then went to Ranger School at Fort Gordon, Georgia. And then we moved out to Erlangen. That's where Ryan was born. He's the only one in the family that can't sing Born in the USA. We have some fun with him on that one. But Ryan was born just outside, in Berlin. And then we moved back to Fort Lewis. Not back, but to Fort Lewis. And dad had a couple of jobs while he was there. Number one, he was, after his original tour there, he decided that he would do another tour that really didn't help his career, but he was just trying to keep the family in Washington State. So he went to PLU as a professor of military science. And then he later went on to Korea for his next job. And when you have a job assigned to Korea, you can be there for, I think it's 1 year with or without your family. And he left our family there at Fort Lewis, where we had a lot more support. And that's actually where Jeff was born. Mom and Dad called him a surprise package. Of course, you don't learn what those are until later on, but Jeff was born down at Fort Lewis. And then Dad came back, and I finished 2 years of high school at Timberline High School down in Lacey. And then my junior year, we moved to Kansas, Fort Leavenworth. And then my senior year, we moved, down to Louisiana. So I went to my senior year in Louisiana and ended up staying there and going to school. When my family moved off to Germany again, they went to Stuttgart, Germany, which is the U.S. European Command. And that was kind of exciting. Just a bunch of generals and colonels walking around and running the show. So it all started there. And Kimberly and I would use Stuttgart, Germany as a base, and we would go year-railing that summer. We lived off of bratwurst and bread, and because we were poor college students, but hey, stayed in youth hostels, but it was fun. Then Dad got stationed at Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and then battalion commander over at Korea, and then went to the Pentagon and finally retired. What's interesting about his career is he stayed in just to help support the family. It wasn't going to be long-term, but that's what happens. So a few pictures from Berlin or Erlangen, Germany. Ryan is the third boy, and he is with the Raffin Construction Company down in the Redmond area. He's a limited partner with them. And Jeff is Edward Jones down there in Magnolia right now at Fisherman's Terminal. He was born in 1981, and he left the Marines after his years with Force Recon, which is, I call it like the special forces for Marines. I didn't really know they had that, but he left as Major Meno. So here's my graduation picture about 200 pounds ago. This was my third high school in 4 years. And
John?
Like I said, I went.
John,
Yes.
I don't think your screens or your PowerPoint is showing.
Oh, so you haven't been able to see those?
No, I've been able to see it, John.
I've been able to see it.
Yeah, I've been able to see
It's
it.
showing on mine.
I can see it. They're not always cropped right, but they're visible.
I can see it.
Mine's perfect. You're really good.
I can see it. You're doing
I
great,
can
John.
see it, John.
Okay.
Bob,
Well,
I
for
think you have
those-
to. Bob, I think you have to push the upper left-hand corner.
I'll give Bob a personal show later. Bob, right now, I've got the Sigma Nu shot right here. When I was at Louisiana Tech, my degree was in finance. I was in Sigma Nu fraternity along with my brother, Brandon. And I was trying to work my way through school at this time. Dad didn't have a lot of extra money. And I worked as a resident assistant and then as a hall director. At Louisiana Tech, they allow hall directors to be students. So that would cover some room, my room part of it. Then I would also work at a convenience store at nighttime, just off of campus. This picture right here is with Kimberly's sister, Kayla, and my brother, Brandon. We had a date. Actually, I was gonna ask Kimberly's sister to our Sigma Nu formal and in New Orleans, and her sister, let me see, Kimberly was a senior, I was a junior, and her sister was a freshman. Her sister said, hey, I'm going to a Sigma Kappa formal, so I can't go with John. Why don't you go? So Kimberly turned around and said, while we were in the car later on, hey, Kayla can't go with you, so you could take me. And I went, that sounds good. So that's how we started dating. She fell head over heels over me, and don't ask her for her side of the story, please. But she had already gotten accepted to Virginia Tech. So she was going to Virginia Tech for her master's degree, but as soon as we decided that our future was going to be together, she changed to Auburn and went to the University of Auburn for her grad school. And she finished with her master's about the same time I finished with my undergraduate. But we were also closer, only 8 hours away. Now, 8 hours away doesn't seem like a long time back then, but compared to Virginia Tech, it was much better. All right, so once we finished school, I came up to Seattle, lived with my aunt on Queen Anne, and I commuted to Everett Mutual Bank. Marcia Smothers worked at Everett Mutual Bank in Arlington, and I worked in Marysville, and then later on went to manage the branch in Everett. But I started as what we call a CSR. So I was a teller, opened accounts, then went into consumer lending, mortgage lending, specs, et cetera. The firm did not have an advisor program. So I asked them if we could start one, and they said, sure, you do it on your own time. So I got some materials and they sponsored me. So I left there with my Series 6 and 63 license, which allowed me to do a little bit of work, but not as much as what I can do now at Edward Jones. So left there. Now, here's the other thing that happened is Kimberly and I wanted to stay home and raise her to stay home and raise a family. And the bank was paying me about $30,000 a year. She was getting $34,000 a year as a teacher. So that didn't really cover the bills. So what we did was we built a duplex, rented out one side, and then lived on the other side. And that worked real well for us to have some loan. I was refinancing somebody else's loan and they had done, and I thought, hey, that might work for me. My first neighbor is former legislator out of Stanwood. His name is Dave Hayes. My current, and then my second one was Dina Garcia, who happens to work with me right now. I had no idea that she'd be working with me at any time, and was even happy that she said yes to work with me after knowing me so long. So we start a family. I had applied to Edward Jones and was promptly declined. So I had to wait another year because I needed to go to some place that allowed me to actually be responsible for my own income. I was making money for the banks, but the banks didn't share that. So I turned around and looked for another opportunity. A guy named Lauren Van Loo in Marysville, Washington with Edward Jones told me about it. So I applied a second time and was about to get turned down again. But then Lauren Van Loo and the regional leader at that time gave me an exception. So I got started in 1998 and they said, where do you want to build your business? And I said, I don't know. I thought maybe Arlington, but that's too small. And Lauren said, no, that's a perfect community. Your wife's teaching up there. I think you'll like it. So I'm thrilled that we made that decision. My family loves, I say my family, my extended family, like my brothers and parents love Arlington as well too. So we rented from the greatest landlord, Mr. Jim Menifee, from August of 98 to March of 2020. And I think we paid for his Arizona house when we left. We then remodeled the Mucklestone building that I bought, Kimberly and I bought in August of 2019, and remodeled that. That was a big dance floor in the very back. So that brings me to today. What do we do as a financial advisor? I listen to clients come in and they tell me what their ideal, I'll call it retirement, looks like. And what are their goals in retirement? Do they want to spend time traveling, or do they want to spend time with grandkids, or all of the above, et cetera? So we work with a lot of retirees and what we call pre-retirees, getting them set up for retirement. I started in scratch back in 1998, which means I didn't have any other Edward Jones office help me. I worked out of the back of our blue Toyota Camry and just went around introducing myself to people in town. And I did that from January of 1998 until we moved into Jim's office in August. And at that point, I also hired Kathy Burkholder at that time. So we grew to about 600 households. Physically, that just was too much. So I brought in Heather Hafner, who's now over there by Hagen's, to help out. And she stayed for a couple of years and went back down to 400 households. Then grew to 600 again. And I brought in Angie, who's over there by Five Guys. You know what? I just can't do the best that I'd like to do and still have a life and not cause my blood pressure to go up too high. So I now have 273. That's an error on here. It's not 175. It's about 275 unique households. We will add maybe 12 per year. And we think that that capacity will stand right there. We have a 5-step process when our clients come in, and luckily that's pretty consistent around our entire firm. And so whether my daughter decides to stay in Georgia and work with somebody at Edward Jones down there or come back up here, the process is going to be pretty consistent. Who's Edward Jones? I had to explain who Edward Jones was when I first came into town. But right now they're the largest firm in the industry as far as branches are concerned. They're about 19,000. And as far as financial advisors, we have also close to about 19,000 on there. We celebrate 100 years in 2022. Edward D. Jones started it in St. Louis. And then his son, Ted Jones, came on board. He died in cancer in 1990 something. Never met him, but I went out to meet his wife. Pat Jones. She lives on the same farm where they grew up, and just wonderful lady. You wouldn't think she owned a thing in the world, just worried about kids. She gave her property to the state a long time ago when the kids come out and just spend time getting to know the prairie out there. Jones is a Fortune 300 company. What I'm most proud about is that we're named the top company to work for in the United States. Top 10 company to work for. There's nowhere else for me to leave. It's been a great family firm. So where's my role right now? I'm a financial advisor, but I did a couple of other things. I came on the firm as a partnership, offered me limited partnership back in 2001. And then they said, hey, John, would you lead the region there? And our region here, it goes from Lake Stevens up to the border of Canada. And so they're about, right now, about 75 offices at that point. And I led that region for about 8 years. And then in 2018, they asked me to lead Eastern Washington from afar. Supposed to be kind of a temporary role, and I would turn that over to a couple of other leaders, but with COVID, I think I took this on for another year. I've also been one of three advisors on the Investment Policy Advisory Committee, and so we used to travel back to the home office to meet with, it was the managing partner and the heads of every single department in the home office that had to do with investing and the client. So that would be, whoa, I got to plug in my computer. Hang on just a second.
I know John's turned into a cougar ever since he's had Eastern Washington as his region. His battery must have gone dead because I don't see him on there anymore.
That's probably because Kimberly didn't do it for him.
David, I apologize. I'm not sure how to get back on, except for going to the other Zoom and joining through the other room.
Did you try the share screen or?
Yes, I'm having trouble on the iPad sharing the screen. So I'm going to go back and do it on this laptop.
John, I already covered the part about you becoming a cougar.
So, all right, I have no idea what you guys are seeing. Are you sharing my screen now?
Hey, John, you're going to have to shut your iPad off. You're getting feedback.
Okay. I got my other system off now.
Okay.
And you can, David, I can only see you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, we have what are my roles up.
Okay. I'm going to leave that. I'll just say real quickly that right now I'm going to stay in my current role for now, but the firm is probably going to ask me to take another role from leading by from afar. There's my last screen right here, was just going into family. Kimberly was at Kids Closet for many years. She's still involved there, but not quite as involved. I have 4 children. Grace is now a Lake Stevens Middle School teacher. Catherine's at the University of Georgia. She'll graduate about a year from now with cognitive science and psychology with a minor in computer science. Laura's a junior here in Arlington, and William is an 8th grader. But this is one of those little COVID things that we did on the bottom right-hand corner. The things we love to do as a family is travel, whether it's in-state or around the country. With Kimberly's family in Louisiana, we try to take a lot of side trips. But this is what we do on Saturdays in the fall. This is what we call our little Meno man cave. We just added a pool table down there, and we love to come down here to watch movies or football. Sometimes we have an SEC game on as well as Washington. The rule is whoever has the best record or the highest ranking gets to watch their team on the big screen. So right now I'm telling Kimberly and Mary Catherine that I'm undefeated. So all Husky games get to be on the big screen. So anyway, that's a little bit about our family. I'm going to get to some of the things that you guys had asked about, what's going on in the markets here. And I believe we have about 6 minutes, so I will go through this pretty quickly. The Dow is about 30,000. So what is the Dow? The Dow is about 30 stocks that represent our economy. I did have a list of what those stocks were, but I don't have it on this particular screen here. Just to put something into perspective, there's something called the rule of 72. If the Dow Jones Industrials earn 7%, it will double in 10 years. If it earns 10%, it will double in 7 years. So just to put some things into perspective, the Dow should be about 60,000 in about 10 years, double from where it's at now. And the moves of 1,000 points here and there won't mean as much because the numbers are getting a little bit bigger. So the Dow is one way to measure how the market's doing, but the S&P 500 contains about 500 of the largest companies out there. That's a little better bellwether out there. So let me bring this up real quick. What's going on with as far as the Dow is concerned? I just got this off of the Edward Jones website. It was pretty easy to see. Is it really significant? Not really. I mean, here's the Dow 100, the Dow 1000, the Dow 10,000, 20,000, and 30,000. We just hit 20,000 on the Dow in 2017. It was not that long ago. And there's a lot of different companies that lead us into this, leading the Dow and as far as the 30 components, and Apple and Visa did it back in 2017. Well, here in 2020, it's Salesforce and Home Depot. All right, so should we be optimistic about what's coming up and what's going on next year? The Dow was around 30,000 at the beginning of the year. And then what happened was we had this pandemic. So we had greater unemployment yet, and those people aren't back to being employed, but the Dow is still around 30,000. The Dow thinks ahead. It looks for optimism and reasons for companies to make profits, which obviously affect the stock price. So you look at somebody like Biden, if he started factoring in the Biden win, and so analysts started recalculating what the Dow would be at if he was president. So they said, all right, corporate earnings will be lower because of increased in taxes. So the Dow is always trying to look one step ahead. And next year, we still think it should be fine. There's going to be a lot of volatility, which is good. Volatility allows you to buy companies at better prices and then sell companies that maybe have made you a little bit of money. But next year, as far as where we are, I think the Dow 30,000 is very appropriate right now, but expect some volatility next year and have some money set aside where you could take advantage of that. I went rather quickly because I screwed up and didn't include my battery in this whole presentation, my battery pack, but I wanted to add one thing here. If you guys are interested, this is a pretty neat article. Post-pandemic, which stocks would you want to invest in? And you know, there's a company called PayPal out here. You know, a lot of people are going in and paying electronically, and PayPal is one of them. Communication services, that's going to be Google and Facebook. And you got UPS and Southwest Airlines is coming back. So these companies right here, if you're interested, just send me an email and I'll forward it on to you. But there's some good companies to be bought out there, companies that pay good dividends and also give you some appreciation of their share prices. And that's all stock investing is. You know, if I could have bought Arlington Pharmacy a long time ago or Bailey, Duskin and Peifel, I would have. It turned out to be a good company, and their bosses all retired. But the difference is when you buy a stock, you're buying something that's a lot more liquid, and you can buy and sell a lot more quickly. But buying good companies that's what the stock market is. So I'm going to end there. Do you guys have any questions? Again, I apologize for what I thought was going to be a good presentation. Didn't go quite as well, but we worked.
Hey, John, Gene Chase
Yes,
here.
sir.
In your historical perspective, you overlooked what happened to you 22 years ago when you first joined Rotary and came to lunch late.
Say that again. I think
Remember when you got fined at Rotary at lunch for sneaking out early?
Gene has a memory of an elephant.
Gene has talked a lot about in the past, and I didn't know if he was referring to the Nooners back then that he told me about. Never knew about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gene, you probably could tell the story better than anybody.
Well, John came to me.